just said, you know, who's the band? And I kind of went, they're called The Script. And I didn't throw that out there, but I was like, yeah, well, we haven't got a name. And none of the, I just called the guys up and said they want to sign us as a band kind of thing. So myself and Dan met them, and we still played him more of the music. And he says, look, let's do this. You know, this would be great to have you too. And we go out and do this, and because we were all playing on the music, you know, it was us.
So I went from doing covers gigs in some of the worst pubs around the country. Though I loved playing them. I'm not going to name them. I loved them all. They were great.
It's me local.
Yeah, so yeah. No, but I went from doing that and working away in little song ideas at home to literally Mark calling me in LA and going, dude, there's a record deal here for us, and you know, come over to LA. And I was like, what? I couldn't believe
boys,
it's on. Yeah, and it literally went from all of us being solo to doing our own thing to suddenly being thrust into this unit. You know, It was incredible.
And you were in LA at the time, but you actually came back here to do it.
Yeah, well, I was setting up, because I was managing the thing at the time, I was setting up studios and how we were going to record the album. I was going through all that stuff. And about 8 o'clock at night, I get a call. My mum is fallen terminally ill in James Street Hospital. So by 5 a.m, I was on a flight home. I had to leave all my stuff to get home to her and called Danny. And Glenn was actually still in Dublin at the time. And I said, we're going to have to do it in Ireland. We're going to have to do it here. Even though it's an American record deal, I'm going to have to be next to my mom. And she ended up being 10 months in hospital, being ill, and passed away after the 10 months. So we were in the middle of writing a record at this point. I had the studio at the back of my house in James Street, and we just recorded there all the time, every day. And while I would go in, write lyrics next to my mom's bedside, we'd come home and we just make an album. And right in the middle of that album, again, we're writing and producing it all ourselves. We come to London, and my mum has passed about 4 months at this point, and we're still recording. And me and Dan just said, I want to go home. It was a snowy evening. We just said, I just want to go home. I don't know why we wanted to go home. We never get that homesick, you know. And we jumped on the flight, landed, and about an hour later he calls me. His dad passed away suddenly, and it was like in the middle of all this, you know. So it was a throw in the towel moment. We just said, forget this. We're not doing this, you know. This is too much for us. And I suppose then we picked ourselves up to move on, just because we knew that's what the parents would have wanted, you know.
Yeah, but interestingly, all those awful sadnesses kind of, as it were, led to more creativity.
I know, it's a horrible thing, actually, because your life, we run to music as a punch bag. It's really tragedy based for us in an awful lot of ways, because it's your diary, it's what you go to vent, you know. And when something like that happens to you, that's how you deal with it. You're not thinking about it going on a record. You're not thinking about it playing on the radio and everyone listening to it. That's not what you're thinking of. You can't, because it wouldn't be artistic if you were to think that. The whole point is to just be yourself and write these lyrics.
If You Could See Me Now was the one. Danny, is it true that you kind of broke down when you were recording that?
Yeah, I mean, the song itself, If You Could See Me Now, is you know, it's in my opinion, it's the song I would be most proud of. And just because, like, as you said at the time, we weren't thinking of the consequences of the song when we were writing it, but we knew that we had to say something. You know, it'd been 4 years since the actual thing happened, and you know, we'd come to the end of the album, and we were satisfied with the album, but there was still, you know, an itch that we hadn't scratched yet on the album. We hadn't gone as deep. And I think I was going a bit off the rails maybe 5 weeks beforehand, and I didn't know why. I think he sniffed it, you know. Little bit Mark was like, I think there's something going on, and I'd said to him, look, I have these lyrics, and I said the lyrics to him out the back of the studio at the time, and I think he was like, right, okay, that's obviously where it's going. And like a really good friend, they'll lead you into the song that way, you know, because we very rarely be talking about, you know, our feelings together, but we do over songs, and that's the best way. It's like when you aim it at something. And he brought in some whiskies, you know, to the studio, because it just gets you into a place, you know. Whiskey just gets you into a place where you're kind of confident, but also very emotional. And we just felt it was time that, you know, I opened up about how I'd been feeling over the past 4 years, and how Mark had been feeling since, you know, his father passed away when he was 14 years old. Very rarely ever talked about it, but yet so eloquently put it into a verse in a song. And that's what I'm so proud of, you know. Obviously, being from Ireland, our national emblem is a harp. That's our shield. Our shield is music, you know. So when I heard those lyrics in the second verse, let alone mine, I was crying all the way through writing mine, because, you know, it's a page of your diary at the end of the day. But then when, you know, I heard Mark's, you know, talking about his father and talking about his mother, and so eloquently rhyming, it's like one of the best verses that I've ever heard in a song, let alone just even I know I'm in the band. But it was just a moment, you know. We had grown men, you know, all sitting there thanking us for being part of that moment, for being able to actually truly represent what's in your heart and putting it down onto the paper. Because they say a problem shared is a problem halved, you know, and we absolutely feel that, you know, as soon as you have to get it out, you know, it'll eat you up inside if you don't put it into, it could be one word to sum up the situation, could be 10 pages long, you know, just as long as you get it out. Our medium is guitars and you know, singing and drums and everything, where, you know, other people's mediums is drugs, other people's mediums is fighting, and they don't know what to do with the pain and anguish inside. I was so proud that we actually just, and if it didn't end up in the album, I would have been happy, and it still would have been particularly for me personally, my best work. Because
would you all go along with that?
Yeah,
it's a scary song. If you know me, you'd know that I'm extremely headstrong about everything we do. It's the only song I've handed back to everybody. Say I don't have an opinion on that song. I can't, because it's too close to the bone. You know,
Right.
I don't know when the right time to play that song or not is. I can't imagine 2:00 in the afternoon doing a TV show is the right time, for example.
There's definitely a different feeling comes over us as a band when we play it, because you know what the subject matter is, and there's a whole shift in our vibe, you know.
Extraordinary, isn't it?
yeah, it's what music can do, you know, and that's that. I mean, initially that was why I got into it, because maybe when I was a kid, I heard somebody else eloquently saying how what they felt for their father. You know, and music always stays in you.
Because your father was very. I mean, people will know you apart from the script. They'll know you from The Voice, and you were working with somebody that your dad had worked with.
Yeah, Tom Jones. Yeah. He's a long history. My dad used to be in one of the old show bands, the Debonaires, and he wrote "Baby I'm Your Man" for Dickie Rock. He was signed to Paul McCartney's publishing company in England. I only found out recently he was Paul McCartney's publishing company. It's like, it's amazing.
It's always new.
Isn't it? And it's circular in a way.
Every time we go around the world, we meet someone who knew Danny's dad, or it's every day we hear something new. It's hilarious.
You know, the most random thing is when I met his dad played with my dad. My dad's a singer, and the two of them performed together when they were years ago.
Yeah.
And when I met his dad, he said, "Who's your dad?" And I said, "Gary Power." And he was like, "Oh my God, that's your dad. I played with your dad. He's a great singer. I'm so glad you guys are in a band together." That's the first time I met Danny's dad.
It's crazy, the symmetry that goes on, you know.
Unbelievable.
The Beatles were the halftime act at a show. My dad was the headliner. And my dad went in and was like, "Anything, just want anything to eat, lads," you know, as the headline.
To the Beatles?
Yeah, and they thought he was just a runner, and they were like, "Yeah, listen, we'll have a burger, chips, blah blah blah." And my dad, as kind as he is, just went, "Yeah, no problem, whatever." Went off and got them burgers and chips, came back and gave it to them. But the symmetry in that was then, you know, when Paul McCartney asked us to support him in America, the first place was Shea Stadium, and my dad's name is Shea.
It's mad, isn't it?
It was just bizarre.
You know, so like
things for us.
you just sit there and go, right, this is out of my hands, this is out of my control here, there's other forces here going at work. You know what I mean? My dad and Mark's mum up there wheeling and dealing, you know.
Sorting it out.
Yeah, big time.
When you say that, when you talk about other forces, are you religious?
I'd be spiritual, I wouldn't be religious.
Because you're saying in one of them, praying to a God I don't believe
Believe
in.
in.
A lot of people get
that.
get the lyric mixed up. But in America, for example, that song "Break Even" got banned on
From Christian radio.
Christian radio banned it. What they didn't realise, we had written a song for another artist who had won the UK.
The American
Idol, yeah. Which his song was a song called "Live Like We're Dying," which we wrote, and it was #1 in the Christian charts, while our song was not. Our song wasn't
at the same time. So we had one song that was completely banned from Christian radio, and the other one was voted the #1 Christian song of the year, both written by
because
the same
we were
person.
saying "Pray to a God I don't believe in." I think people misunderstood that.
No, I was just wondering.
Can we clear it up a little bit? Because pray to a God that I don't believe in means that in your deepest, darkest hour, if you don't believe in God, how much pain you feel at that time, that's the moment where you turn.
You would turn to
I
God.
just prayed to a God that I said I didn't believe in, because that now I'm turning to faith because I hurt that much. But I think everybody understood it as I don't believe in God.
Right.
You know.
Yeah. No, I just wondered about it because I also saw, wasn't it you quoted as saying that your favourite choice to go out to dinner with would be Jesus?
Yes.
Yeah.
Honestly, yeah. Because he's
He
got
said this because he never run out of wine. That's what he said.
for a multitude of reasons. He has all the answers, and I've got a lot of questions.
Oh, very good.
And is that a religious faith?
I would say I'd be more spiritual faith. I do believe there's something guiding life, guiding me, guiding everybody. I think I think the way we met, the way this came together, a lot of things that have happened in my life feel very guided. So I choose
all
to,
those apparent coincidences are really
call
striking.
It Buddha,
Really
call it Jesus, call it God, call it whatever you like. I just know there's a force at work, definitely in everything. I've evidence of it. There's so much for it that I can't dispute it. That's me. That's a personal thing.
Right, because it's kind of not associated. Well, it is associated, obviously, with you too. I mean, their religious commitment to religion. But would you see yourselves in kind of the same?
No, I don't think so.
No?
I think
think so, yeah.
we stay away from two subjects. We stay away from is religion and politics. And we do that for a reason, because
How can you stay away from religion?